I hate the Buffalo Bills. I'm glad they lost. I don't like Sean McDermott. I'm glad he got fired. With all of that said, the Buffalo Bills and Sean McDermott got screwed on Saturday night. And I say that as the most independent person in the world because I can't stand the Bills. And I celebrated late Saturday afternoon, early Saturday night when they lost. But, bro, between the interception that wasn't and the PI calls on the final drive, Sean McDermott essentially lost his job in great part because of incompetent officiating.
Well, I mean, confusing officiating. Because I can honestly see it both ways when you talked about the interception that occurred at the end of that game. When the wide receiver comes down with the ball, who was it? I'm forgetting his name. Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks tries to come down with that ball. It's moving a little bit, so he hasn't fully secured the catch. And then his back gets turned to the camera, and then McMillan comes over top, and he also now has possession. And then when you roll over, he comes away with the football. There was never a fully completed catch by Brandon Cooks.
The next day there was a play just like it in the Ram-Bear game, and they did the exact opposite call with Devontae Adams.
Here's the thing. That was a call that whatever they called on the field was going to stand because you can interpret it both ways. And I think the reason that it stood as an interception is because it was called an interception.
It is overtime, and you've got 5 minutes. You got all the time in the world to take a look at it.
Yeah.
And I can't believe
they didn't look at it.
They didn't. I can't believe I'm saying this about a head coach I cannot stand on the day he got fired. But Sean McDermott was spot on after the game. And think about it. I know the Bills lost for many other reasons, which I'm sure we'll get into over the next 4 hours at different stages of the show. But Sean McDermott was spot on after the game when he said, hey, can you look at it? He even used one of his timeouts to give them more time. And so if that play is called correctly, the Buffalo Bills are set up. They hit a game-winning field goal, and this douche Sean McDermott has a job for another week. Not that I'm crying over that. But what made it worse to me, I mean, my head's going to explode, and I hate the Buffalo Bills, which, again, I'm showing you my fairness. The next day, we see the same play called differently. And then not only that, on the Broncos' final possession, you called not one, but 2 pass interferences when the entire game you never blew your whistle. And I'm going to say this to anyone who's weirdly weirded out that Evans is so upset about this. I didn't bet on the game. And I hate the Bills. I'm a sports fan telling you that Sean McDermott got fired because the officiating is befuddling.
Well, no, if he gets fired after that loss, because he easily could have been in the championship game if the officiating would have been right, he got fired because they were ready to fire him. I think that's what that comes down to.
But if they win that game.
He's not fired yet. You're right.
Not yet.
But they were ready to fire him, clearly, because it wasn't his fault that they lost. I mean, Josh Allen, as much as we want to laud him, and you keep hearing the greatest player in the planet right now, you can't have 3 turnovers in a divisional round.
You also can't commit the turnover he committed at the end of the first half. That
100%.
was an unforgivable, brain-dead kind of move by a guy who's supposedly great.
The interception, we'll take that away. But you still had 2 turnovers, and they're mind-numbing turnovers for a guy who is an MVP-type player every single year and is always a leader. I mean, maybe that's why he was so emotional after the game and crying, because he knew it was partly on him.
Oh, absolutely.
But you also, at the same time, as we've said all season long, you got to give the Denver Broncos some credit. You got to give Bo Nix some credit and Sean Payton and this defense some credit because they just find ways to win, Denver. And I said this early in the year. I said it last week or on Friday before we left for the weekend. There's something about playing in Denver. Like you can't fully describe it, but it takes something out of the opponent that it doesn't take out of the Denver Broncos. And we saw that a little bit. The guys were gassed.
Yeah.
They mentioned it on the broadcast, how you're huffing and puffing. You don't know why you're tired because you shouldn't be, but you feel like you just can't catch your breath. And Denver took advantage of it.
I don't take anything away from the Denver Broncos, just like I don't take anything away from the New England Patriots, who have definitely the easiest path to a Super Bowl in the history of the NFL.
Starting from week 1 of the NFL season.
Yes, based on their week schedule, based on the Chargers having no offensive line, based on C.J. Stroud forgetting how to play football, and based on the fact that Denver Broncos are starting a backup quarterback. But I don't take anything away from them.
No, of course
good
not.
for them. I wish my team was lucky enough to have that situation. So I'm not taking anything away from Denver. I'm just saying that between an interception that shouldn't have been called and then 24 hours later, it's called completely differently, and the fact that the entire game, they did not throw flags. They let the corners be very handsy throughout this entire game, and yet on the final drive in overtime,
but those were
back-to-back PIs.
But those were PIs, though. They were.
Go back earlier in the game and tell me there weren't PIs that they kind of choked the whistle on.
Yeah, they definitely were. But when I think the circumstance of being wide open in the one on the corner, on the sideline, and then one right basically in the middle of the field, it's just obvious. You have to call it. Especially the last one that set up the Denver Broncos game-winning field goal with Denzel Mims. And so, not Denzel.
Marvin Mims.
Yeah,
Denzel's my guy.
Right. Marvin Mims.
Yeah.
Like, you had to call that one. Now, look, if Bo Nix throws that ball into the end zone, it's a touchdown.
Right.
It doesn't even matter, and the game's over. But because he was throwing with a broken ankle, which we didn't know at the time,
How about that?
He didn't get any kind of oomph on it, so he just threw it up in the air. And Mims had to wait for it, and the DB ran into it.
But all I'm looking for, I think all of us are just looking for consistency.
Yeah.
And over the weekend where
you have to call that, Evan.
I don't know if you do, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude.
No, you don't.
You were getting people screaming the NFL is rigged if they don't call those pass interference to get Josh Allen in the Super Bowl.
First of all, that is such BS because this entire game, and really the entire weekend, which I credit the NFL officials for, there was a consistency of letting them play.
Yeah, I
sure.
I
We
hear
even
you.
saw that the previous week, so there would not be conspiracy theories around it.
I agree with you, but when the game is in overtime and it's down to that play, and you don't call PI when it's obviously PI, we call this this isn't really a conspiracy. This is just calling the game correctly.
No, it's not.
Even if it's different from how you called it in the regular time of the game. But if you don't call that pass interference, then you get conspiracy theorists.
I completely disagree.
That was your biggest star left was Josh Allen. We would be today's open would be, can you believe the NFL? It felt like they were trying to force Josh Allen in.
Yes.
We would look at this completely different the other way. And I'm surprised at you, Evan, with that whole
Because I hate the Buffalo Bills.
No,
I'm glad they lost.
Well, first of all, just right off the bat.
Yeah.
Comparing the Devontae Adams catch yesterday to that, two completely different plays.
No, it's not.
Devontae Adams is catching,
it was
making
essentially the same play.
It's not essentially. There's a big difference. Devontae Adams is turning and making a football move when his knee goes down. Brandon Cooks' football move, he's catching simultaneously hitting the ground. And if the ball is not intercepted, there's a pretty good chance the ball is popping loose. He doesn't survive the ground. That is not what happened with Devontae Adams. They're two entirely different plays.
Completely disagree.
Devontae Adams is running, and he's going down. As his knee hits the ground, he pulls the ball out.
No.
That's the difference.
I've watched both plays over and over again. Now, look, nothing is going to be 1,000% identical, but within 24 hours,
was it Devontae Adams catch a simultaneous catch?
No.
Exactly.
Then
it's not the same.
I don't think the Brandon Cooks one was either.
He was diving in the
as he
ground.
hit the ground.
No, it's when Brandon
and it got ripped out of his hands.
Cooks is grabbing that ball. McMillan's hand is inside his hands. Now the ball is starting to slide, so it's not a catch yet. As Sean mentioned and said correctly, if Brandon Cooks hits the ground, McMillan pulls his hand out, and the ball comes loose, he doesn't survive the ground. Right. It's an incompletion. So that's exactly what happened, except McMillan took it. You know what I mean? And so the difference with Devontae Adams is that he made a catch, and then as he was going to the ground, I don't know, a step later, the defender pulls the ball out, but he was already down.
You know what the other difference is with the Devontae Adams catch? They looked at it. They didn't even look at this one.
No, you're right.
And that's where McDermott made his best point, which is...
my point, do they not look at it in overtime? I couldn't remember the rule.
Every turnover is looked at. They looked at it. The issue is it was very quick. They should have took the time, put on a show, put the guy under the hood, 5 minutes,
By the
whole
way,
thing.
You're right, and they should have. And you want to call it putting on a show? Sure, they should have put on a show.
I agree
because
with that.
The perception I had, and certainly the perception the now fired Sean McDermott had, was they didn't look at it, which is why Sean used the timeout to give them more time to just take a second look at it.
Here's something odd. Do you think they didn't? Because they needed to get to the second game.
They did delay it a couple minutes already.
Dude, I'm not even joking,
It's
dude.
a good point.
If they take 5 minutes to look at that, because that's what you're not, 2 minutes to look at that, you're going to bleed into the next time.
I think,
mean, it's funny to think about that, but I can't otherwise explain why they wouldn't look at it.
Tiki, I think that's the most accurate conspiracy theory you could come up with this weekend because they did push that game back.
Yes.
And if you noticed in overtime, they were rushing through it. Like, there were no commercials. It was like,
Flying.
let's get this game over with. So maybe that was the case. And look, that's not the only reason Buffalo lost. I cannot get out of my head. And this is why, I'm sorry, and maybe I'm a bad guy. I have no compassion for Josh Allen. I really don't. He's 0-7 in overtime in his career.
Right.
It was all set up for him
That's
to
regular
go to a
season
Super Bowl.
and postseason.
Yes, it's 0-4 in the regular season, including the game against the Jets where Rodgers got hurt.
Right.
And then it's 0
Zach Wilson.
Yeah, it's 0-3 in the playoffs. So, I don't have compassion for him, and there were definitely other opportunities for Buffalo to win. I am not just like ignoring that. And that turnover at the end of the first half was one of the most brain-dead, unforgivable mistakes one could make. And I'll make Josh Allen cry a little bit more. You're the reason Sean McDermott got fired because that turnover essentially cost you the game. You can't give the Denver Broncos free points at the end of the first half. I could not believe my eyes.
Right. It's a one-possession game. You fumble. You make it a two-possession game.
Yes. And you know what's even crazier about it? Do you guys remember, and I don't recall if this was his first postseason or second, do you remember he did that in the playoffs like 6 years ago against the Texans?
Yeah.
Where it was the end of,
Yes.
Actually, it was the fourth quarter.
Fourth quarter.
And he like tried to lateral the ball back.
Yeah. The problem was it's like, I know, look, you could be running. He's wide open. He's in the middle of the field. There's nobody around him. You're a running back right now. He is carrying that ball like it's a loaf of bread. We always use that now. It's in his hand like, oh, I'm just cool. Tuck that thing away, dude, because you know somebody's going to hit you that you don't know is going to hit you. The fumble was obviously going to happen because of how he was carrying the football. It's almost like a really smart player being too cool for school and then making a mistake and being like, oh, crap, I got caught.
Yeah.
So,
dude,
yeah.
it's such
brutal.
It's such a horrific mistake. Horrible. Now, the other thing I really enjoyed because I went into Sunday thinking, wow, that Bill game, we didn't get what we deserved. And I also admit, after the fact, I got more upset because of the fact that we now found out that Bo Nix is out for the season. Yeah. And so the best chance to stop the Patriots would have been the Buffalo Bills. But I'm watching the Patriot-Texans game. And Troy Aikman, who does not give a rat's, he's going to tell you what's on his mind. They were analyzing a PI call that was not made, I think, in the Texan game. That's what I think it was. Listen to Troy Aikman's response to the rules analyst explaining why it wasn't called and Troy's evil but spot-on response.
There's some contact there, but to me, it's very close in time to when the ball arrives. They don't want officials to call that.
Vrabel did. Somebody needs to tell the Bills that.
And I was thinking the same thing.
Oh, that's funny.
You can't tell me, they don't want them to call that. Meanwhile, we had a playoff game on Saturday afternoon decided by the officials calling not one, but two PIs.
That's why Aikman he's so grown on me because he just keeps it simple and just says it like it is.
Yep.
He's not trying to be over smart, predict plays, and just keep it simple.
And the best part of that clip, and
watch it like a fan.
You may have to play it again, Sean. That evil laugh at the end of it, too, was great.
There's some contact there, but to me, it's very close in time to when the ball arrives. They don't want officials to call that.
Vrabel did. Somebody needs to tell the Bills that.
The Troy Aikman evil laugh at the end is the best part. And meanwhile, if you're just tuning in, this all cost Sean McDermott his job.
Yeah.
Now, I get why the Bills are doing this because
they were ready to fire him anyways. You could tell.
I think so, and I also think that this team has been so good and so close and has failed so often in big spots that eventually you have to say, are we going to do something different? Or are we going to run it back year after year? Right. And as much as we can criticize Josh Allen for the turnover at the end of the first half, he's a top 5 quarterback in this sport.
Oh, of course he is.
You're not getting rid of him.
But it's those little things that often come back to haunt him, and especially in the postseason. It's making dumb mistakes when you're a great player. And as a great player, you shouldn't make dumb mistakes.
Completely agree.
How about the coach just doesn't, or just kneels on it at the end of the first half and not put Allen in that position?
You got 80 yards to go for a touchdown, whatever it is, 50 yards to go to get in field goal range. With 16 seconds, the likelihood is very, very small.
I think that is showing faith in his quarterback. That's a guy who says, I believe Josh Allen, and maybe he shouldn't, and maybe the next head coach shouldn't. I believe he won't do anything dumb. If it isn't there, he'll throw it away. No harm, no foul. If he can find someone on the sidelines, get out of bounds real quick, we at least gives ourselves a puncher's chance at a long field goal.
Yes.
That was a head coach who had too much faith in his quarterback. And it's amazing for an elite level player like Josh Allen, but maybe he shouldn't have that faith in his quarterback based on the decisions he made. But I get why they fired him. Like, they've almost maxed out, especially in a year in which you can't say it was Patrick Mahomes or it was Joe Burrow. Like, they got knocked out. No offense to the Denver Broncos. Good for them. They deserve all their flowers, whatever the hell you want to call it. This was their chance. This was their moment. So I get firing Sean McDermott. I guess what I wonder about is, where do you go from here? Like, it's Super Bowl or bust over the next few years with the Buffalo Bills. Where do you go, especially because they were a few days too late on John Harbaugh?
Yeah, and their defense was bad. And giving up 30 points every single game, including in this one where they gave up 33. So their defense was the issue, even though offensively you could have said they played well enough, even with some of the Josh Allen mistakes, to win games. Their defense just wasn't up to snuff.
Their defense was an issue, but they did turn the ball over, like you said, 5 times. And it's more than just yesterday. It's everything.
Right.
Like, we saw it with the Knicks to a lesser extent. When you just can't bust through, you look around and say, what can I do differently? Because the one thing you don't want to do is just try the same thing over and over and over and over again and expect a different result.
Because that frustrates everybody.
Of course. So what are you going to do differently? You're not getting rid of the quarterback. There's only so many changes you can make with the roster.
Right.
You try a different head coach. And coming up a little bit later on, because we have to do it with the 10th head coaching opening in the NFL, we will now throw the Buffalo Bills into head coach bingo. And we'll make an official prediction on who we think is going to be the next head coach of the Buffalo Bills. But I've got great news for you, Tiki, you, Sean, and everyone in the audience. It's not John Harbaugh.
Yep.
And let's be honest.
The press conference is already set tomorrow at noon.
Like, if this thing wasn't official yet, if there was still flirting between the Giants and John Harbaugh, how nervous would you guys be about a Buffalo Bills vacancy?
Full loaf in the pants nervous.
I wouldn't be. Only because I think John Harbaugh wanted to coach the New York Giants. I do.
Look at you.
Fire me up, Tiki. Fire me up. Inject that into me.
And he's going to say that tomorrow. Watch.
I'm sure he will. And we'll be there live.